Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our SoftwareONE webinar today. My name is David Bloxham, the Marketing Manager at SoftwareONE, joined today by Hitesh Patel, the Senior Partner Manager at Red Hat. Today's webinar is all about the journey to the open hybrid cloud. Just before we go into the main part of today's content, just run through some housekeeping rules. So as you may have noticed, you're all set on mute on your call today. Is to ensure that the sound quality remains at an optimum. If you do have any questions as Hitesh runs through today's slides and content, please use the chat box facility, which is located on your right hand side. Do send us your questions and we'll use the end of the webinar as an opportunity to answer those queries and questions. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Hitesh, who can run through today's topic on journey to the open hybrid cloud.
Thank you, David. Okay, so just to talk about the themes behind the subsequent webinar. So today's webinar, as David alluded to, is around data center modernization. So I'll be limiting the dialogue to that theme this morning. The second webinar is around the next stage of cloud readiness. From a Red Hat perspective, what we mean by that is standardization. So standardization at the hardware, platform and operating system level. So how one goes about managing a scaled out distributed server environment in the same way as they do a proprietary scaled up environment, and managing the IT service management considerations therein. And then the third webinar will be around virtualization and cloud convergence. So how you go about leveraging existing data center assets in achieving cloud readiness and looking at migrating virtual VMs, virtual guests rather, to the cloud and back again, whilst adhering to your compliance and security regulatory requirements. And then the final webinar in the series is around the open hybrid cloud and the Red Hat cloud infrastructure. So this is about what Red Hat bring to cloud in terms of keeping the cloud open so that you can ensure the portability of workloads and applications to any cloud destination, so that what has happened within the proprietary data center does not repeat itself as a cycle within the cloud. So some of the things that we'll be exploring will be what the open hybrid cloud is, how one goes about embarking upon the journey to the cloud, what the subsequent steps are, which are modernization, standardization, virtualization, and the hybrid cloud infrastructure. And as I mentioned before, we'll be talking about how one goes about modernizing the data center to complete that first leg of the journey. So let's just take a step back and look at what's driving this move towards cloud. So obviously, within any business currently, there are more pressures based upon or placed upon the IT manager or IT strategist based on the pressures to deliver more applications and services to business owners such as CMOs, and to be able to communicate with customers and burst out with marketing campaigns and analyze big data, do the sort of things that you need to do in order to leverage cloud and big data within your organization and be more competitive within the environments that you work within. And you have to obviously balance that with the regulatory requirements placed upon you and the security requirements that you have within the business. So there's a balancing act and a certain element of fine-tuning that you need to do in order to leverage those efficiencies. So this is an overview of the various different models that you can use to bring those efficiencies to bear upon your business. And a lot of them are diametrically opposed, or the two that I'll speak about are quite diametrically opposed. So if you look at some of the vendors such as VMware, they'll be talking about creating a private cloud within your data center, so an additional silo within your data center. And keeping that data private. And then if you look at Amazon EC2, obviously they're looking at moving or helping you move a lot of your applications, whether it's infrastructure as a service or developing applications online through platform as a service, to their public cloud infrastructure. Red Hat's view on this is to leverage what we call the hybrid cloud. So to keep all of your applications private and burst out where necessary and where you can and where regulatory compliance allows you to do so. So to burst out non-mission critical applications or keep your data on site so that you adhere to regulatory compliance. So we believe that you should leverage the efficiencies of both environments, therefore the open hybrid cloud message. Open in as much as we like to keep the cloud destination APIs open so that you can use any management tool and you're constrained to one particular vendor. Okay, so let's look at some of the challenges of moving from the physical data center to that nirvana, which is, as we say, the open hybrid cloud. So one of the issues that a lot of organizations have is that they have a lot of their workloads within various different Unix silos. That's costing them a lot in terms of money, in terms of platform refresh cycles, the maintenance of that environment, and the administration of complexity based on the fact that there are various different flavors of Unix within the organization. What our recommendation is to look at migrating those applications and workloads to a common platform infrastructure and a common operating system environment, that being Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And once you've done that, start looking at applying the efficiencies of standardization and standardizing the provisioning of those environments and the updates and management of those operating systems, or that operating system, that being RHEL, and automating that process, therefore reducing the below the cost systems administration cost that you'll be experiencing otherwise. And then once you've done that, start looking at applying the efficiencies of virtualization, or if you've done that already, start looking at managing those workloads within the physical data center and moving those workloads or migrating those workloads to a public cloud destination and back again, which is what we call the convergence of virtualization and cloud. And then finally, maximizing the open hybrid cloud by using such technologies as OpenStack, which Red Hat have recently started to support, so that organizations can start building private clouds of their own and keep them open and maximize their choice for the future as part of their IT strategy and cloud. So let's look at some of the market dynamics just to bolster some of the statements that I've been making. So this is some IDC information as part of a press release that was delivered last week or sent last week. So if you look at the growing revenues for Q2 of this year, IBM ZOS as an operating system in terms of server revenue is growing, and is almost 10% of the market server revenue. Linux is also growing, and that is fueled by the growth of Linux within the cloud. Windows has declined slightly, which represents just under 50% of total server revenue. And one of the most interesting statistics is Unix revenue has declined by 21%, making it the lowest ever server market share as part of an IDC report or press release, which kind of serves to illustrate the point around customers looking to either run those Unix workloads on ZOS or Linux, which is leading to some of those growing server market share revenues. So let's look at some of the existing stacks and the go-to stacks in terms of applying those simplification methodologies to the data center. So if you look at organizations typically running data center Unix risk environments, they'll be running a number of different architectures, those being Spark, HP Itanium, PA RISC, IBM Power, and what have you. And the applications that are linked to those pieces of server hardware, so Solaris, HPUX, and IBM AIX. And then the database will be a version that would be applicable to that operating system. The management tools, whether it's HP OpenView or IBM Tivoli, will also be intrinsically linked to that server hardware. And then you'll have the business application, whether that's CRM, ERP, linking into that database. So looking to the right side of that diagram, this is a more sensible way of running the stack, in our opinion, and this is where a lot of customers are gravitating towards, is through essentially running commodity-based platforms such as Cisco UCS hardware, with Red Hat Enterprise Linux as the operating system of choice, therefore consolidating both at the hardware and operating system level, and then running Oracle 11G as opposed to 9i Rack or other variants, and then running those business critical applications on top. Therefore, using one piece of server hardware or one type of server hardware and one operating system, and consolidating their data center in doing so. Additionally, a lot of customers are looking at doing the same, applying those same efficiencies that they're seeing on the server platform front into storage. So where they have built up storage silos using HP, IBM, HDS, NetApp or EMC, they're looking at open storage options such as those afforded by NetApp, where they can look at using commodity low-cost storage to deliver the same types of efficiency and running their database workloads accordingly. So how does that translate in terms of benefit to customers? So typically you can segment them into three key areas. Consolidation in terms of business value will reduce to at least a third in terms of server hardware cost through the migration from proprietary to industry standard server platforms. A 20% reduction in server spend, and this can be through the administration of that environment by using less expensive server management software, or simply through the reduction of application cost, because you're using less CPUs and therefore being charged less by that application vendor. And then finally, 30% or more reduction in systems administration costs. So this is afforded to you by using less systems administrators to manage your server environment, because you're managing one as opposed to three variants of Unix and one variant of Linux instead. And this is how some of the costs look like or translate to in the real world. So looking at the server hardware costs, you're looking at something in the region of 88% lower costs by moving from proprietary to industry standard server Intel or AMD technology. The server costs decline as a result of using less expensive management tools. The systems administration costs may only decline marginally, but in terms of order of magnitude, it could reduce from 3 to 1. So you know, that 14% number could change dramatically as a result. And in terms of power and facilities cost, they may actually go up marginally in as much as you'll be using a scaled out type environment, therefore power and cooling may go up marginally. But that is you know, far outweighed in terms of benefit in the other three key areas. And then if there are any migration costs associated to recompiling any of the applications, business applications for example, then they will be a negative, but not much in terms of outlay. And in terms of the summary of costs, 72% of cost savings can be afforded within the first year, which you know, is a significant part of the budget saving that you can be used, or that you can use for innovation as opposed to keeping the lights on, and more transformational activities such as using big data to analyze some of your customers and be able to market more effectively to them, for example. So what are the drivers for infrastructure consolidation? So one of the business cases are, if you're a large brand, a large blue chip organization, typically you'll be engaging in mergers and acquisitions, and you'll be acquiring organizations with different policies and different data centers and different Unix variants within those data centers. So that's one of the drivers, is simplifying the data center. The other benefit, the ancillary benefit, is through consolidation you've taken the first step towards cloud readiness and having a virtualized first policy. So you're consolidating those applications and workloads to a common operating system environment, and therefore you can use the same virtualization technology as opposed to LPAR technology. You can use VMware, Rev, Hyper-V, whatever your virtualization, commodity virtualization technology choice is, and you're in a state of cloud readiness, because that application is now decoupled from that server hardware and ready to burst out to any public cloud destination. So why is not everyone doing this if it's such a great idea? So there are a number of different reasons for it in terms of categories of Unix holdouts. So one of the reasons could be technical. So a lot of organizations may not be aware of the RAS features of Linux. One of the statements from the Yankee group rates Linux as more reliable than Windows or Unix, for that matter. They may have some trepidations around whether it will meet their scalability needs. One of the most popular workloads running on Linux is Oracle 10G or 11G, and that as a technology has been used within the stack for over a decade. Or they could have security reservations. One of the interesting rebuttals here is Linux is used by the National Security Agency in the US, who created a project called SE Linux, Security Enhanced Linux, which essentially prevents hackers from accessing applications if there is a vulnerability within the operating system. So if it's good for the US Army, it tends to meet most organizations' security needs. So let's look at some of the other Unix holdout categories. So one of the reasons that they're holding out is that they could be waiting for the appropriate application to roll out on Linux. They could be waiting for a hardware budget to be able to refresh that hardware that may be long in the tooth. Or they're waiting for their licensing terms to complete so that they can move those Oracle licenses to the appropriate commodity piece of hardware. Or they could just be waiting for a new budget cycle in general, or waiting for a merger and acquisition to consolidate, waiting for the right time to actually make that move. Another trigger could be new IT management that isn't necessarily married to legacy and has a fresh set of eyes and is open and receptive to a slightly better way or significantly better way of doing things. And finally, there could be a compelling negative event associated with the existing hardware platform. So there's a lot of trepidations expressed by customers that are married to one vendor, that may be somebody they're buying a database and hardware from and putting a lot of their eggs in one basket. So a lot of customers are looking at reducing the impact of that single vendor owning the stack. And then the final category could be around political reasons. So, the person buying Unix in the first place may be wedded to that strategy because it was their idea and may be reluctant to change for that reason. There may be a perceived cost of change or risk associated with that change as part of the migration. That's often not the case. It's often a case of just transferring that workload to Linux and away we go. Or there could be some reservations in terms of having the appropriate skill set to manage that Linux environment. The reality is that if your systems administration team are used to managing a Unix environment, because of the similarity between Unix and Linux, they're likely to be able to transfer their skills within a week of moving to Linux through the appropriate academic training and knowledge transfer. Just to illustrate some of those points, there's one customer in particular that I will cite, the New York Stock Exchange. So one of the lesser-known facts is that 50% of the world's transactions happen on Linux. 25 of the world's leading global stock exchanges run their trading platform on Linux. The New York Stock Exchange migrated to Linux over 10 years ago. because they simply wanted to have a trading platform that was consistent and scalable in all of their trading countries and was low cost. So they had obviously some fairly stringent requirements in terms of performance and low latency running a trading platform, and looked at migrating their HP UX, IBM AIX and Sun Solaris servers to Red Hat Enterprise Linux running on HP Reliant commodity Intel hardware or AMD hardware, and moved from a 3-tier to a 2-tier system. Saved a significant amount of money as a result of doing that. And if you look at the reasons why the CIO at that time, Steve Rubino, moved to Linux, it was the cost of entry to the platform, so the low cost of AMD hardware, the cost of maintenance, so maintenance is simply a percentage of the hardware outlay anyway, so that was low cost, and the cost of exit to that stack if they needed to exit. So the implications of moving from HP to IBM would be a simple straight swap, because the application was not linked into the operating system, which was not linked into the hardware. So if you're seeking to embark upon the consolidation journey within your data center and modernize your data center, what can Red Hat bring to that discussion? So let's talk briefly about what we do to Linux to make it enterprise ready. So Red Hat as an organization have been trading for over 2 decades, and essentially we take the Linux operating system and create Red Hat Enterprise Linux by choosing the components that we believe customers seek within their data center. So the features of scalability, security, performance of applications, and the interoperability with the server hardware and the applications that you use will be tested on any version of our operating system. And once we're satisfied that all of that functionality is enterprise ready, we release it as the next version of our OS. What does a customer get as part of that? So there's no need to buy a perpetual license. It is a subscription-based support mechanism. So essentially you get the assurance that we will support the operating system on your server hardware, and we certify it with your business applications. In the event that there's a problem associated with the hardware or the operating system or apps, we will solve it and provide support on a mission-critical basis with 24/7 support, and support any version of our operating system for up to a decade, and apply updates to that operating system and versions on a quarterly life cycle or monthly life cycle, depending on the critical nature of those patches and updates. So the next stage of this journey, should you wish to embark upon it, would be to carry out a Cloud Readiness Assessment. So what we would do as part of that assessment is carry out an analysis of the workloads that are ready to be moved, what the dependencies are based on your middleware environment, what are the workload candidates for migration essentially and consolidation, what are the quick wins and what are the benefits to you at the application level. We'll also look at the architecture that you're using and work to a roadmap that suits you. So if you've just taken delivery of the Unix hardware, you can use Linux, you can run Linux, you can get used to its features, functionality, and the administration of that environment with Unix within an LPAR type environment, for example, and work at a rate that, or move those workloads at a rate that suits you. As part of that assessment, what we'll do is obviously look at analysing your existing IT environment and then start providing recommendations for consolidation, and look at how you manage that environment equally in the same way as you do currently, but probably better by obviously simplifying that environment and automating it. Therefore increasing hardware homogeneity and reducing the future IT outlay in terms of your platform spend. We'll also bring some other efficiencies to the application layer should you wish to start evolving those open standards into middleware as well as the operating system, and reducing your licensing costs as a result. What you get as part of that assessment is an inventory of server hardware, the open source proprietary software portfolio alternatives, and some of the recommendations on how you go about managing that environment once you've consolidated it. So how you go about implementing a standard operating environment, automating the deployment of images, patching, updating, provisioning that scaled out distributed environment, and then give you a project plan for implementing some of those recommendations, whether that's consolidation, standardization, or virtualization, and then give you a time frame and an estimate for completion of those three steps and what you get as a result of carrying out those steps. And then as a result of that process, we'll provide you with some of the knowledge that you can then use to be able to manage and administer that environment so that you are autonomous in that regard. So just to summarize, slightly beyond time, but essentially the steps are to start looking at the infrastructure, the platform infrastructure, and operating system consolidation where appropriate, and then look at the management of that scaled out infrastructure so that you start reducing the below the line costs of your systems administration and apply those cost savings elsewhere within your business. And that leads me into the theme of the next webinar, which is the next stage of that journey. So once you've consolidated those various Unix environments to Linux, we will be talking about standardization and automation leading to bringing you to a state of operational efficiency, what we call a standard operating environment. So with that, I'll end the official part of the webinar and open the floor to questions.
Thank you, Hitesh. So as Hitesh just mentioned there, so we'll use this session now to open up for Q&A. One question we've already had, so how do I apply for the Cloud Readiness Assessment? What is the first step?
So I believe within the email that you've received, there is a button that you push and you'll be able to leave your details, submit that, and somebody from SoftwareONE will get back to you and schedule that for you, initially with a call and then probably a face-to-face meeting. The way that happens is essentially what we'd be looking to achieve is have a couple of people within that meeting that can provide us with a view of your current estate so that we can take a view around what the recommendations are in bringing some of those efficiencies to bear. So everyone obviously has their own nuances around their data center, so we just need to discuss what they are so that we can look at the early candidates for migration.
Okay. Thank you, Hitesh. And if you have lost the original email, not to worry, we will circulate these slides after the session, and also a link to the recording, and I'll also include the information again regarding the Cloud Readiness Assessment. So that's the only question we've had today. So Hitesh, you've done very well, obviously, in articulating the proposition. So it just leaves me to say thank you, Hitesh, for running through the today's webinar session, and also for everyone joining the webinar today. I hope that's been of value and to take back into your own businesses for further investigation. So thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you on future Red Hat webinars.